Last Breath will have you holding your breath at times, and honestly, in my opinion, this is just a really well-made movie that I enjoyed my time with, so let's talk about it. But before we get started, as always, if you're new here, my name is Aaron, and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies, so if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It would be greatly appreciated on my end. And if you've already seen this movie, let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments. But without further ado, let's talk about Last Breath. So this is based off a true story, and this movie also has a documentary that was done on this story as well. But anyways, in the film, it follows a group of saturation divers played by Woody Harrelson, Simu Liu, and Finn Cole. And when one of them gets trapped at the bottom of the ocean, the others, of course, work to save him. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is just the way they handled the stakes and the overall suspense in this film. I thought this aspect of the movie was the strongest part of the entire thing. And even though this is based off a true story, at its core, this is a survival film. They did such a great job at setting the stakes in this thing, and then not only building the suspense, but also sustaining that suspense throughout the entire movie, which in my opinion is a very hard thing to do. They were using timestamps throughout this movie to tell us how much oxygen our main character Chris has left, and also tell us how long he has gone without oxygen. And even though that is a very small detail in this film, I think just having that sense of time in this movie really added a sense of urgency to this thing, and in turn added to those stakes and especially the suspense of the film, because our other characters were on a timer in order to save Chris. But yeah, you could really feel the stakes and suspense in this thing, and even though this was a non-fiction story and you could probably guess how this thing was all going to turn out, it was able to hold that suspense throughout the entire movie and really keep you engaged. Next, I have the visuals, and this is something I didn't expect from this movie, but this thing was pretty aesthetically pleasing to look at. There were some shots in this that just had great composition, and once we got to those underwater scenes, which were some of the coolest scenes to watch in this movie, that good cinematography just carried over into that, not only in the way they shot those scenes, but also in the way they lit those scenes as well. It's pitch black at the bottom of the ocean, and they did a great job at making the lighting feel realistic and practical. Whether it was the lights from their suit or a flare that they had lit up, all of the lighting in this movie made it feel like you were actually in the ocean and not just on a set or in a pool somewhere. So they just did a great job at showing what it's like being at the bottom of the sea, not only through the way they shot it, but especially through the way that they lit a lot of those underwater scenes. And finally, for the good, I have the performances. Now, this is a movie that doesn't necessarily rely on its performances, but what we got from our main trio of actors was still good. Now, our main character, who was played by Finn Cole, obviously wasn't in it all that much because he was stuck at the bottom of the ocean, but when he was in it, he did a good job. But this movie mainly focused on the characters who were trying to save him at the bottom of the ocean, and those characters were obviously played by Woody Harrelson, Simu Liu, and Cliff Curtis, and they get most of the screen time in this film. I think each of them did a really good job. I mean, these are actors that if you put them in your movie, you know you are going to get a solid performance out of them, and that's exactly what they did. Moving on to the so-so, and the only thing I have here is that this film is a bit formulaic. It doesn't do anything new or special. It pretty much follows that basic formula of your typical survival movie. But then again, this is a formula that works, and they executed that formula very well. So it's kind of one of those cases that, hey, if it's not broke, why fix it? This film is pretty straightforward, and it gets right to the point. It doesn't waste any time on scenes that we don't need, and in my opinion, it gets from A to B pretty efficiently, and I can appreciate that. So if you're looking for this movie to do something new and fresh in this survival movie genre, you're not gonna get that, but you are going to get a movie that accomplishes what it set out to do. And finally, getting into the bad, and the only thing I have here, and no pun intended when I say this, but this movie just didn't have that much depth overall. In terms of the characters, you don't really get to know them outside of their job. You might get one little tidbit here or there, but that's about it. And given that this is a pretty formulaic survival movie, even though it is a true story, it remains pretty surface level for the most part. But again, I really can't complain too much about it because this is a very well-made movie that accomplished what it wanted to do. So with that said, Last Breath is a really enjoyable movie. It's got some good suspense, nice visuals, and solid performances from the entire cast, and that makes it a movie that I would definitely recommend. Those are my thoughts on Last Breath. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.